I felt safe after seeing my teacher and her comforting smile. I thought that I would finally rid myself of this hellish hole called a school, but I was in for a shocker. My teacher had other plans. "Accompany me so I can get my bags," she told me. I felt wary of her statement, but followed her nonetheless. When walking past the hallway, I noticed that everything seemed normal as I was with my teacher. It made me question whether I hallucinated everything. Suddenly, we were standing in front of a creaky and decaying wooden door. "Where is this?" I asked, feeling a little bit frightened. She shone her teeth and whispered that it was the basement. I got instant chills and my heart started beating fast. We went in with her leading the way. I had summoned up the courage to follow her because I did not want to be left alone. Every step we made down the stairs echoed in harmony with my heartbeat, and every breath I exhaled came out as a white mist in front of me. In no time, I started freezing and shivering, but my teacher did not seem to feel anything. Instead, she turned back to me and smiled widely. I shivered more. "We are here," she said in a voice that was way deeper than her normal voice. Immediately, she descended the stairs. I could not see her as the darkness enveloped her. I hesitated, but then descended to join her. I could not see anything now because the darkness was worse. "Hello," I called out. I did not get a response. I continued making my way around the basement, but did not make headway until I finally brushed against something. I felt around with my hands and discovered that it was quite solid. When I made my way up the object, I jolted up in horror. When I felt 2 holes for eye sockets and teeth, I knew in horror that I was feeling a skeleton. Immediately, I started hyperventilating and sweating profusely. "I have to get out of here," I said in my mind as I hastily turned around to flee. Surprisingly, directly in front of me with a bloodied knife was my teacher, grinning. I immediately started backing away, and she looked confused. "Why are you scared?" she asked, but I was mute. My brain was already searching for possible escape routes. She suddenly looked at the knife and laughed as if she suddenly realized. "Oh, this? It's not for you." Instantly, without warning, she advanced and reached for me. I closed my eyes and hoped for the worst, but nothing happened. When I opened them, I discovered that she had just turned on a light switch behind me. The basement was now lit, but I got no relief. In the middle was a star-shaped diagram that was covered in dried blood. The middle of the pentagram was currently occupied by a slaughtered hen with fresh blood still spraying from its throat. My teacher walked into the middle of the pentagram and slit her palm. Immediately, her blood touched the pentagram, and her eyes rolled back to her head and became all white. "You are welcome to the School of the Damned." When she spoke, it sounded like thousands of people spoke with her, and it made my skin crawl. Their voices were coming from everywhere in the basement. As they talked, I began seeing odd writings in different languages scattered all over the room. They glowed in unison with her speech. "All of us are lost souls trapped here for eternity." Everything now made sense to me, and I understood what I had gotten myself into. "And now, you will be one of us," they screamed as she suddenly lunged at me with gnarly and long nails. My body immediately moved on its own, and I scrambled away. I stumbled on the stairs as I ran back up while they let out a guttural roar as I escaped. When I finally made it back to the hallway, I heard a resounding clang that echoed everywhere. It seemed to magnify the horrors of the school as the patterns in the walls started giving off an eerie glow. Fortunately, nothing strange happened again, and I quickly made my way to the front door. I had a feeling that it would now be open, and I was right. As I hastily made my way out to the school courtyard, the bell rolled again, and my heart skipped a beat. The door immediately shut behind me, and I saw shadows of people flicker around the school. I knew that I could not go back now, so I made my way through the school courtyard. The bell rang again, and I found my body walking towards the clock tower. Something about its ominous sound seemed to enchant me. The more I got closer to it, the more it rang. As it did, lights flickered and more shadows moved in the corner of my eyes. When I finally got to the clock tower, I started hearing whispers coming from the very foundation of the building. My brain told me to run, but my body continued pushing forward. The bell resounded again, and the doors of the clock tower slowly opened to me. I swore that I could hear the whispers telling me to come in. When I entered, I could see thick cobwebs and dust mites all over the place. Worst of all, I saw all those eerie-looking writings in strange languages. They glowed ominously as the bell rang. In the middle of the clock tower, I saw another writing engraved in wood. However, this particular text was written in English. It read, "Thus the bell tolls for the lost souls damned here for eternity. It tolls for them, and it shall toll for you too." Immediately I read this, the clock struck 12. It was midnight. Immediately the clock struck midnight. It was the start of a whole new horror show for me. I started hearing screams of things that sounded mildly human. They called my name and told me to come out and join them. Deep down, I was scared of everything, and something inside me actually wanted to go out and put an end to it. However, the only thing that kept me sane and rooted to the clock house was the thought of my aunt. I could not do this to her. I quickly latched the rickety door of the clock house shut. Immediately, I searched for a weapon to defend myself in case the worst happened. Luckily, I came upon a solid stick. It was sharp-pointed, so I quickly grabbed it and held it tight while I prepared for the worst. I pranced around the clock house while I waited for the creatures to attack me and possibly take my soul with them. Their howls and growls got louder, and suddenly, the windows and door of the clock house started getting rattled. From where I stood, I could smell a pungent odor coming from them. However, as quickly as the noise started, it died down. After counting from 1 to 5 with my quivering breath, I took a sigh of relief. Then I steadily walked to one of the windows to see what was happening. Mist formed in front of me as I breathed heavily. I could not see through the window because of the mist, so I quickly wiped it using my palm as I wanted to make sure I was safe. While I was wiping, one of the creatures jumped in front of my face, and I jumped back in shock and horror as I stared at the crack in the window along with the greenish liquid dripping from it. I quickly scrambled to get my makeshift weapon as I prepared myself for the worst. Surprisingly, nothing happened. It was as if souls of the damned could not enter into the clock house due to some reason. They just hovered and wandered around, but made no attempts to enter. I felt a little bit secure by this knowledge, but I still decided to remain vigilant. However, the next thing I remembered was waking up in the morning. Once I opened my eyes, all the horrifying events of the last day came rushing to my head, and I ran towards the clock house door. "I have to get out of here," I said. I had thought everything was a dream until I had seen myself lying down on the bare floor of the clock house. Instinctively, I had put the makeshift weapon into my bag. I quickly unlatched the door, and when the first beams of sunlight hit my face, I instantly felt warmth and relief. Somehow, I still felt very hopeful. I quickly set off to the school gate, as I believed it would be easy to leave now that it was morning. However, I could not have been more wrong. I quickly checked my watch to confirm the time and date. What I saw confounded me. It was the same day, over and over again. This is a freak show. I have to leave. I screamed in my mind as I started to run. A few seconds of running gradually turned to hours, but still, I had made no progress. No matter how far I went, I always ended up back at the school's entrance. After going through the same pattern for the umpteenth time, I decided to catch my breath at the front of the school. There were stairs there, so I just sat down. Instantly, something happened. I felt it before I saw it. A hand landed on my shoulders, and I was so petrified that I froze. When I turned back to look back, I saw a student around the same age as me. She wore a ponytail and could pass as a normal kid. However, The other thing that made her stand out from any other average kid was that her left eyeball was literally dangling from her eye socket. Maggots were literally crawling in and out of her skull, but still, she had a smile on her face. I quickly shoved off her arm from my shoulder and took to my heels. Maybe I used force because her arm came off its socket completely. That was just the beginning of my horrors as I saw more students and teachers appear around the school compound. They looked more ghoulish than the former ones. Each time I tried to escape, I was pulled back into the cycle, forced to relive the terrifying time again and again. I decided that I must uncover the truth behind this endless loop or risk being stuck there forever. I was now totally drained and checked my watch again. I realized that I had spent 24 hours at this horrific school. It was a miracle I was still alive. This gave me renewed hope again. I decided to end things once for all. No more playing around, I said as I made my way into the school building again, while I uncovered my makeshift weapon. This was when I made a shocking discovery. The school had changed entirely. Now, it had numerous hallways and endless corridors that looked so ominous. There are more sounds and chattering now. Every door I opened led to another part of the school, and they were equally unsettling. Eventually, I entered a new section I had never seen before. A room with what looked like pictorial representations of former students of the school. I immediately realized that I was not alone. Something was really trapped within the walls. Hands with unnaturally long nails started pushing through the walls. I looked up ahead and saw inscriptions on the wall, written with what can rightly be passed off as claws. I immediately brought out my makeshift weapon, as I was not willing to go down without a fight. I heard growls and groans all around as the walls seemed to collapse in on me. Then suddenly, I looked up again, and everything was gone. I was currently outside the school gate, and on the street to my aunt's house. I could not believe it. I had been trying to escape the school for several hours, but within a moment, I was out of it. Without skipping a beat, I started moving back to my aunt's house. I did not want to be trapped back at that godforsaken place. Within a few moments, I saw her house and made my way inside. I knocked at the door but got no response. After a while, I let myself in. She must be asleep, I told myself. Her back was faced towards me, so she did not see or hear me come in. Then she turned and saw me, and a beam of smile and relief ran through her face. "Can you hear me?" Her voice sounded faint. "What?" I replied, unable to hear even my own voice. Her voice faded off as she approached. That was when I woke up. I looked around and saw myself in the hospital. I was bandaged up and my aunt sitting next to me, beaming in joy and tears. Nurses came rushing to me when they discovered that I was awake. They were so delighted. I couldn't remember anything that led to me being in a life support machine, but I am glad events at the horror school were just a nightmare. "Where is my mom?" I asked faintly, and the look on my aunt's face darkened. Then it all came back to me. I and my mom had been in an accident. They explained that I have been in a coma ever since, but sadly, my mom had passed away. My aunt flew in a few days ago to stay with me, and to take me with her to her city if I survived. Same city from my dream? No! I let out a muffled cry.